Good afternoon and welcome to the Daily News Analysis by Civil Service Institute, Pala. Today, we'll be looking at important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So, let's move to the first article of the day. Can presidential reference change a judgment? So, what is the background of this article? On July 22nd, the Supreme Court issued notices on a presidential reference to clarify if the president and governors can be judicially compelled to act within fixed timelines on bills passed by state legislatures. The reference came after the Supreme Court's April 8th ruling, which criticized Tamil Nadu Governor R.N. Ravi for delaying assent to bills and referred the matter for presidential consideration. Now, what is a presidential reference? Under Article 143, Clause 1, the President can seek the Supreme Court's advisory opinion on matters of law or public importance. The Court is not bound to accept every reference, but must provide reasons for declining it. Can the Court advise? Yes. Under Article 143, Clause 1, the Supreme Court can render opinions if the President seeks clarification on questions of law or fact. But it must be a genuine legal query and not for political motives. Now, are advisory opinions binding? The binding nature of advisory opinions is contested. Article 141 says, law declared by the Supreme Court is binding. In several cases, example, Special Courts Bill of 1978, advisory opinions weren't considered binding precedent. Yet, in some instances, courts have treated advisory opinions as binding, such as in the 𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗏 versus Union of India case in 1981. So, can the court overturn a prior ruling via presidential reference? In the Kaveri Water Disputes Tribunal reference, the Supreme Court clarified that Article 143 cannot be used to review or overturn its settled judicial decisions. Only curative or review petitions can challenge final judgments. The court cannot restate or re-express an already settled legal opinion just because a reference is made. Now, precedents of presidential references. In Ayodhya dispute in 1993, the court declined to answer a presidential reference, citing its unconstitutional nature. In 1993, the Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association case, the Supreme Court used a presidential reference to modify aspects of a previous ruling, though not overturning it. So what are the takeaways from this article? Article 143 empowers the President to seek Supreme Court's advisory opinion, and such opinions are not binding but carry persuasive value. Article 143 cannot be used to seek reversal of a judgment. The April 8th judgment remains final, though its implementation and impact may be examined further. Moving on to the next article. Is the plastic industry trying to influence green policies? This is from the Hindu, today's Hindu. The plastic industry, backed by fossil fuel giants, is now being compared to the tobacco industry in its methods. Both promote products despite non-health or environmental harms. They use profit-driven tactics, misleading PR, and scientific denial to downplay risk. Now, how does plastic industry mirror tobacco industry? Shifting responsibility. Tobacco ads carry disclaimers, yet blame is placed on individual choice. Similarly, plastic makers blame consumers, avoiding corporate accountability. Misleading PR and science. Tobacco companies denied health risk for decades. Plastic industry promoted recycling since the 1980s while privately acknowledging its impracticality and economic infeasibility at scale. Now, greenwashing examples. Plastic is marketed as recyclable to avoid regulation, though most ends up incinerated or dumped. Now, the examples include tobacco's use of terms like light or mild, and plastic's use of recyclable despite real waste management challenges. Targeting the global south. As stricter plastic regulations hit the global north, companies shift focus to low and middle income countries, especially in the global south. These regions often have weaker regulations, poor waste infrastructure, It advocates protections, making them vulnerable to plastic pollution. Plastic consumption is predicted to more than double in sub-Saharan Africa and triple in Asia by 2060. India's role in plastic management. India's waste system heavily depends on the informal sector. Rag pickers and sorters handle 70% of the recycled plastic. These workers lack protection, rights, and recognition. Now, what are the government initiatives associated with plastic management? National Action for Mechanized Sanitation Ecosystem 2024 integrates waste pickers with safety, health, and social benefits. Ministry of Social Justice began profiling these workers in May 2025 for inclusion in welfare schemes, and key legal reforms include the Plastic Waste Management Rules of 2016. Now, plastic industry promoted recycling from the 1980s while privately admitting its impracticality. As regulations rise globally, plastic producers shift focus to the global south, and India relies on the informal waste sector, which handles around 70% of the nation's waste, including plastic recycling, but lacks recognition and protection. So it's high time we make plastic waste management rules stricter and go for a bottom-up approach rather than top-down approach. Mass starvation spreading across Gaza warned more than 100 NGOs. So over 100 aid organizations and human rights groups warn that mass starvation is spreading in Gaza. More than 2 million people are facing severe shortages of food and other essentials after 21 months of conflict. The groups demanded an immediate negotiated ceasefire, the opening of all land crossings, free flow of aid through UN-led mechanisms. Organizations including Medicine Sans Frontiers, Save the Children, and Oxfam reported about the mass starvation. Aid groups say colleagues and those served are wasting away. Aid warehouses with supplies are located near Gaza but remain blocked from entering due to conflict. The situation is described as both physical and psychological torment with false promises of aid and ceasefires. So Israel's military continues operations in Gaza, Gaza City, and Rafah, claiming actions against terror targets. Gaza's largest hospital reported the death of 21 children due to starvation in the previous 3 days. Sneaky insects and AI robots. Germany plans to reinvent the nature of warfare. Germany, influenced by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is increasing defense spending and embracing cutting-edge military technology. Defense startups like Helsing, now valued at $1.2 billion, are seeing rapid growth due to this shift. A new draft law aims to reduce hurdles for cash-strapped startups by easing advanced payment rules and contract barriers. Germany's startups are developing AI robots, tank-like machines, unmanned mini submarines, and battle-ready spy cockroaches like 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 real-time data, improve surveillance, and operate in hostile environments. Historically, Germany avoided large defense initiatives due to trauma from World War II and Nazi militarism, a strong pacifist ethos, and dependence on US security. Previously, Germany preferred incremental improvements, but that's now changing with a bold pivot to innovation. European Union's procurement has lagged behind, often shutting out startups. The US has a more unified procurement system with giants like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon dominating. Germany and the European Union are trying to replicate the US model with support from smaller innovators. Now, what are the policy and strategic goals? Germany plans to nearly triple defense budget to euro 62 billion by 2029 and meet NATO's target of 2% of GDP on defense. The shift aligns with US policy goals and concerns over China's technological rise. Along with this, they are also focusing on cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. Germany's Bundeswehr Innovation Center has become more active post-Ukraine war. AI robots and biotech inspired designs like insect-based drones are at the forefront of development. Indian economy remains largely resilient despite global uncertainties, RBI article. And this article was published in the State of the Economy in the July bulletin of RBI. Despite geopolitical tensions and tariff policy uncertainties, the Indian economy remains resilient, supported by strong macroeconomic fundamentals. Domestic economic activity picked up in June 2025 with high-frequency indicators showing promise, especially in urban consumption and services sector. During April-May 2025, total expenditure grew by 19.7% year-on-year, with capital expenditure rising 19.7%, indicating strong investment activity. All India unemployment remained steady at 5.6%, with rural areas performing better than urban ones. India's merchandise trade deficit narrowed in June 2025 due to reduced imports. Average trade tariff rates may touch levels last seen in the 1930s, potentially triggering global economic disruptions. Retail inflation fell below 4% for the fifth consecutive month. Consumer Price Index inflation dropped to 2.1% in June 2025, the lowest since January 2019. While the first half of July saw cautious trading, signs of optimism arose due to easing inflation, front-loaded government spending, faster transmission of rate cuts, and favorable financial conditions. So what are the concerns and global factors? Trade tensions, particularly around India-US trade deals, are still a concern. The upcoming US tariff hike from August 1, 2025 is expected to affect India's trade strategy. Financial markets remain vulnerable to macro risk despite current optimism. Moving on to the next article. Vaccine hope in malaria fight. The Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, has developed a candidate malaria vaccine called 𝗬𝗏. The vaccine mainly targets two parts of Plasmodium falciparum, a pathogen that is the most common source of malaria in humans. In India, however, the disease is caused by Plasmodium vivax, against which 𝗬𝗏 is ineffective. Malaria is a parasitic infection transmitted by mosquitoes, having claimed millions of lives. Malaria has been one of the deadliest diseases in human history. Currently, the disease kills about 4 lakh people annually, according to World Health Organization figures. Here you can see the reported malaria cases in India from 1995 to 2022 and the reported malaria death in India for the same year. Now, how this vaccine works. It is a chimera recombinant vaccine combining two antigens from Plasmodium falciparum, and it targets both the sporocyte stage, that is the infection prevention stage, and the sexual stage, that is the transmission blocking stage. Preclinical trials, mostly on animal, show more than 90% protection and immune response that lasts longer than existing vaccines. Now, what is the advantage over other vaccines? It uses a reliable adjuvant, that is alum, to boost immune response. Another advantage is that alum in 𝗬𝗏 can remain stable at room temperature for at least 9 months, according to initial studies. This might make it possible to transport the vaccines without maintaining the cold chain. Storage. It overcomes limitations of existing vaccines like RTS-S and R21, which use only CSP protein and have shorter lasting immunity. It shows higher efficacy around 75% and protection lasting longer than 3 months, equivalent to nearly a decade in humans. What are the next plans of ICMR? ICMR will partner with private firms for clinical testing and large-scale production, and it also seeks commercial licensing of the vaccine. Now, PICAS and the uprising against British. What is the context? Former Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik on Tuesday, that is July 22nd, expressed concern over the omission of the Paika rebellion from the latest Class 8 history textbook of the NCERT, calling it a huge dishonor to the brave Paikas. Now, Who were the Paikas and why did they rebel against the British? And how is the alleged omission of the rebellion from history textbooks a politically sensitive issue in a state like Odisha? So this is from the Indian Express's explained section. So Paika rebellion is important from the modern history perspective. So let's look at the Paika rebellion. The Paikas were a class of military retainers who had been recruited from various social groups by the Gajapati rulers of Odisha since the 16th century. They would render martial services to the king in return for hereditary rent-free land, which they would cultivate during peacetime. The end of native rule in Odisha marked the beginning of the decline of the Paikas' power and prestige. Apart from losing political patronage, the Paikas, who previously enjoyed rent-free land, suffered due to new land revenue settlements introduced by the company. The British also changed the currency system, demanding revenue payments in rupees, which increased pressure on dispossessed marginal tribals. Now, the British control over Salt, which had pre-1803-1804 origins, but was extended to coastal Odisha in 1814, also led to rising hardship for the people in the hills. In March 1817, some 400 Khans equipped with traditional arms were joined by an army of Paikas led by 𝗑𝗲𝗅𝗔, the former commander-in-chief of the king and the erstwhile holder of the lucrative Rodanga estate. The rebels attacked the police station of Banpur, burnt government quarters, killed policemen, looted the government treasury, and proceeded towards Khurda. The Paikas fought bloody battles at several places over the next few months and killed several British officials. The company army gradually crushed the revolt. 𝗑𝗲𝗅𝗔 escaped to the jungles and remained on the run till 1825, when he finally surrendered to the British under negotiated terms. The Paikas and their rebellion have long been used to invoke Odia subnationalism. The 𝗑𝗲𝗅𝗔 government in Odisha in 2017 commemorated the 200th anniversary of the rebellion and demanded that the center declare the Paika rebellion as the first war of independence, given it was launched 4 decades before the mutiny of 1857, that is the revolt of 1857. This has caused a political slugfest in the state of Odisha. NCERT has already clarified that regional resistance like the Paika rebellion will be handled in the second volume of the textbook, expected to be released in September-October of this year. With this, we come to an end of the session. Thank you. Have a nice day.